All right, so after a couple of days of setbacks, I'm finally able to get out on the water and hopefully successfully film the casting impressions video of the 2025 Shimano ALDEBARAN DC, which is probably the most anticipated reel to come out from Shimano this year. Now, once again, the left-handed versions of this reel have been out for a couple of months, but I have not watched one review video on it on YouTube, nor have I read any kind of online blog reviews on the reel. That, of course, is because I wanted to experience this reel by myself without any kind of preconceived biases that I've either read or watched online. Now, the reel is mounted on the JDM Shimano Bantam 6'8" medium. I've spooled it up with 10-pound monofilament, and this is how we're gonna do the testing on this reel. Now, there's gonna be two parts. This first part, we're gonna test out the castability with monofilament, and then in the second part, we're gonna test out the castability with braid. Because according to Shimano Japan's website, one of their pro staff said that this reel is, I guess, extremely exceptional with braided line, but then again, what reel is it? So let's get started. So since the ALDEBARAN DC is a very lightweight, compact, comfortable reel to palm, it's the kind of reel that I would use for lures that require you to twitch your rod, like jerk baits and walking topwater baits. So that means for this test, we're going to be casting just one lure. That is the Lucky Craft Gunfish. I think it's a 95. It weighs between 3/8 and 1/2 of an ounce. Probably closer to 3/8. And of course, now it's time to set the reel up. And that means setting the spool tension. And I'm going to set it up to have just a hair of side-to-side play. Just a hair. It's very important in these Shimano DC reels that you don't tighten up the spool tension so much that you not let the brakes do their thing. All right, so the spool tension is set, and the way I'm going to do this is that we're going to cast in each mode, and in each mode we're going to see how low we can go on the brakes. So pretty straightforward. That means we're going to start off in the main mode of H or high, and the fine-tuning latch or switch turn to maximum. All right, here we go. Time to find out if the saying is true, and that saying is don't ever meet your heroes. Now, we have literally calm conditions here with some wind kind of blowing here and there, but barely noticeable. But here's the first cast. All right, very controllable, and oh yeah, just twitching this top water with the super light ALDEBARAN is effortless. Distance is probably about, I don't know, 75 feet. Now the brakes are maxed out. This is the strongest brake setting you can do without tightening up the spool tension. And I will say that the DC song or the DC whine is pretty muted. It's not very loud. All right, let's go this way. Okay, a little bit more effort gained us a little bit more distance. In fact, let's cast out this way from here on out. So now we're gonna go down one setting on the fine tuning. So that will be equivalent to the number 4. Here we go. Boom. Okay, that's going close to 100 foot, maybe more. Okay, let's do a sidearm. Of course, casting is smooth. The retrieve is even smoother. All right, so on the high brake mode, So far, so good. Let's go down one click on the fine tuning, and that would be, I guess, number 3, if there were numbers there. Here we go. Boom. Spool was perfect. Perfect spool control. Distance, probably gained about another 5 foot, I guess. Nothing too dramatic. All right. Now, are these just jaw-dropping distances? No. A lot of reels can cast this lure just as far or farther than this ALDEBARAN so far. All right, now let's go down one more click. So this would be, I guess, number 2 if the fine tuning had numbers. Boom. Now I kind of expected to see some overrun there, but I didn't. Distance went probably another 5 foot farther, but perfect spool control. Let's do a sidearm. Ooh, almost bit it on some mud here on this ramp. Perfect. Yeah, look at that, just so lightweight. Imagine trying to twitch this lure with a CURADO M, which is big, bulky, and heavy. Like literally on the first cast, your wrist will be wore out. All right, one more cast. Perfect. Okay, all right. So it's very similar to the Metanium DC in fluorocarbon mode. So now I just flipped it over to the minimum fine tuning setting, and we got a breeze coming in directly to my face. Let's see what happens. Nothing happened. Nothing at all. Now, of course, that was a sidearm cast. And the breeze is still coming directly to my face. So let's do an overhead. Nothing. Perfect spool control. Distance, probably reaching 35 yards. We'll do one more. But no overruns or anything during the middle of the cast. So the high brake mode seems to be fishable in all fine tuning settings. So far so good. Okay, so now we're going to turn the fine tuning back to maximum, and we're going to turn the main mode to medium, or M on the dial there, and let's start casting. Pow! Holy shit. All right, guys, we almost casted all the line off. Look at that. You can start to see the darkness of the spool underneath this yellow line, and we launched that bait easily over 40 yards. And one thing that I immediately noticed is that the spool was immediately noticeably faster and freer spinning than in, I guess, high brake mode. Immediately I could tell the difference. Wow. I don't know if we can go any lower, guys, because I might cast all the line off. I might cast all the line off of this reel. Okay, we'll do a sidearm and then one more overhead. But the distance increase is noticeable, at least on the overhead casts. But so far I'm impressed. All right, we'll do one more overhead. Boom. at that. Okay, so here's the moment of truth. With the 25 Metanium, you really couldn't go any lower than the maximum fine tuning when using its monofilament or braid line mode. So I guess the equivalent with ALDEBARAN would be this M or medium brake mode. So now we're gonna change the fine tuning to 1 click from maximum. Here we go. Boom! Guys, that's going probably close to 45 yards. Very impressive for such a reel with a small spool. I was keeping an eye on the line, seeing if it would fluff up, but nothing. That tells me one thing. You can't run really thick line on this reel if you're wanting to cast long distances, because you're going to cast all the line off. Like if I had 12-pound mono on here and I was throwing like let's say a 1/2 ounce or maybe 5/8 ounce top water, all the line would be coming off. All right, let's go over this way. We'll do a sidearm. Man, just easy peasy distance. Effortless casting, headache-free casting. That's what DC reels are all about. All right, we'll do one more overhead in this brake setting. Oh, bad cast on my part. Bad cast, but no worries. Spool perfectly controlled. All right, let's go down 1 click on the fine tuning. So that would be equivalent to the number 3. Here we go. All right, well, distance didn't really increase versus the last fine tuning setting. I did see 1 slight overrun on the spool. But other than that, perfect spool control. Ooh, bad cast on my part. Had a lot of overrun. That was my fault. All right, let's do a sidearm. Whoa. Had massive overrun on that cast. Let's do one more. I'm not gonna whip the rod so hard this time. There you go. Better distance and perfect spool control. So for those of you who I guess have poor mechanics for long distance casting, whether it be your form or your timing on the thumb bar release, then these DC reels are definitely going to be for you. All right, one more overhead. All right, so honestly, not much of an increase in distance on this fine tuning setting, going from 4 to 3. So we're going to go down 1 more click. So this will be the equivalent to 2. Here we go. I'm cautiously watching this reel every time I go lower on the brakes to see if the spool's gonna blow up. So far it hasn't disappointed. Boom, that's gotta be the farthest cast yet. And I do believe we're at our limit. Saw some loops forming. Luckily the cast of course is long enough that to work themselves out, but wow, for such a small spooled reel to be bombing distances like this, it's very impressive. Okay, let's do a sidearm. Look at that, just an easy sidearm cast, perfect spool control. Then of course, look at that, just so easy to twitch this gunfish without any kind of stress on your wrist. All right, we're gonna do one more overhead, and then we're gonna go down to the minimum setting. Here we go. Boom. Easily over 45 yards on these casts. Remember, this is not even the average weight of a topwater. Average topwater, like a spook, is like half an ounce or more. All right, so far, I'm really liking this ALDEBARAN. It is definitely not like the 2024 Metanium DC, where you would never even be able to get to the mid fine-tuning settings on that reel. At least not with this kind of line. So let's go down to the minimum fine-tuning. All right, here we go. Thinking this spool's gonna blow up, but we gotta go for it. All right, guys, that cast was approaching 50 yards. This is how much line's left. The spool backlash, because it was my fault. I didn't stop the spool with my thumb. But wow, now that wasn't the cleanest cast. There was some fluffs of line, but for the most part, it was perfectly manageable. I didn't have to feather the spool with my thumb at all to keep it under control. Oh man, I'm really liking this reel. It has already exceeded the Metanium DC in my eyes. All right, we'll do a side arm. Oh, look at that. Just kind of flipped it out there, and we did see a pretty decent overrun. It worked itself out. Let's do another one. Distance, of course, way short of the overhead cast. But wow, this is what a DC reel is all about. All right, we'll do one more overhead, then we're gonna go to the low brake mode. Here we go. Poor cast on my part. The chromed out thumb bar is really slick. So we're gonna do one more, see if we can get a good long cast. All right, here we go. All right, not the longest cast, but look at that. Guys, I have not blown the spool up once. You've seen every cast I've done with this reel. The spool has not blown up one time. And once again, we're on the medium brake setting, fine tuning set to minimum. So now, of course, we're gonna turn the fine tuning back to maximum, and we're gonna switch the mode into the low brake setting. All right, here we go. Boom. Definitely one of the longest casts yet. Don't think it's gonna be that much more than the last brake setting, but yeah, the spool did get squirrely. Hopefully you guys saw that. Spool was squirrely, worked itself out, but wow. Let's do a sidearm. Oh, there we go. This is the first spool blow up of this test, and it's a very minor one. Yeah, the sidearm cast, the lure comes off the rod, way different. The reel is expecting the lure to fly like a bullet, but it didn't. And let's try another sidearm. All right. So this is the second overrun, but I'll take it. Considering we're on the low brake setting, I'll definitely take it. Okay, so we're gonna do one more overhead, and then we're gonna start going down on the brakes. Here we go. Oh. All right, we might be at the limit. That was definitely my fault. With these lures like the Gunfish 95, there's no weight transfer system, so the release point on lures like this is very important in order to get the lure to fly straight like a bullet through the air. So when you're on the very edge of breaking like we are now, even the slightest amount of lure tumbling or wobble, it's going to cause a blow up. Right now I'm missing the old style thumb bar where they had that plastic grip piece. All right, we'll do one more. Let me try to get my release point and wrist snap just right. There we go. Not the best cast. Not the best form on my part, but we got a clean cast. But yeah, there ain't no way the Metanium DC was going to be doing this. No way. All right, let's go to the next adjustment down. So that will be about 4. We got a wind coming right to my face, but let's cast anyway. Ooh, look at that. Now, even if there wasn't a wind in my face, I have a feeling this brake setting is still too low. It would have blown up regardless. So it looks like with this lure, with this line, these conditions, we have hit our limit. All right, I'm gonna try to do an overhead with this particular brake setting. Oh. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So that's it, guys. The limit is the light or low brake mode with the fine tuning set to about 4. Actually, I should say the fine tuning on maximum because we never got a clean cast on this current brake setting. So it looks like Shimano listened. I guess they saw my review and experiences on the Metanium DC, and they've fixed the problem with this new ALDEBARAN. Kudos to Shimano. All right, so we're gonna turn the brakes back to maximum on fine tuning. And I'm gonna rip off a couple more casts. Whoa. Yep, spool blew up. We are on the edge of brakes. That could happen. Any kind of deviation in wind or casting can cause a blow up, even after you've had a successful cast before. But all you ALDEBARAN DC owners, lefties out there, let us know your experience in the comment section, because now when I get home, I'm gonna go and check out all the Japanese reviews on this reel, check out all the blog posts, just to see what they had to say. Were they just trying to clickbait people and thinking there was something wrong with this reel, which is a common tactic used by YouTubers, or were they impressed? But so far with monofilament mode, I am, whoa, I am damn impressed. Yeah, definitely if you're going on the low brake mode, you're gonna need a heavier lure and a more consistent cast, but that doesn't change my opinion on this devastating new 2025 Shimano ALDEBARAN DC. The perfect reel just might be here, at least for an angler like me. All right, fellas, so that's it for part 1. Gonna go home, take the cheap monofilament off. We're gonna spool it up with some, I think I have some 20-pound 8-strand braid lying around, which is way thinner than this. That should let us throw an even heavier lure for longer distances, but that's going to be next. All right, guys, thanks a lot.